In this episode of Undictated, we're going to be talking with O Sullivan, no stranger to the business community, and Hannes Strydom, who wore the number 5 jersey right through the game when South Africa won the World Cup in 1995. So it's quite appropriate that he's wearing a jersey, not that jersey you can see as it's from 99, but Hannes has been under the cosh. He's a businessman, he's a pharmacist, and we'll go into that story, which is one that so many of us can learn from. Undictated is all about getting context so you can know more. And going through all of the detail of this saga, which we'll unpack for you in the next 20 minutes or so, reminded me very much of the experience my wife and I had. At one point in time, we owned a health shop. She actually owned it. We got a guy who came and worked for us. And the only advantage that this health shop had, it was in the Rosebank Mall in Johannesburg, was from a company called Saga. They only sold their products through health stores, not through Dis-Chem or Clicks pharmacies, which are far, far cheaper. And as a consequence, it was a very important supplier to us. We hired a guy who seemed to be far more knowledgeable than we were. He engaged very well with the customers. And unfortunately, what we discovered was that Solgar was supplying us with products that were coming into the shop, being signed for by him, and then going straight out of the shop. And when I got hold of Solgar and asked them what was going on, somebody there said to me, well, there is a store at Melrose Arch where the owner has a very bad credit record. We do not supply them, and yet they have Solgar on their shelves. On a bit further investigation, we saw there was a relationship between these two. Unfortunately for us, we couldn't prove anything. We had to pay the guy to leave, and that was the story. Now, Hannes, that to me, reading through the detail of what you've gone through, was that on a tiny basis, given that you're a far, far bigger operation, and there's tens of millions of rands that are involved here, it sounds similar to what you've just been through.
I think, Alex, it's similar actions, different modes operandi, traces as well, too, because, he might get caught out on the one way, but definitely it did happen that stuff was received, not even GRV. In other words, it's goods received voucher was being written out for us. It wasn't put onto the stock system of the pharmaceutical wholesaler, and then went directly into buckies being delivered to warehouses where they were waiting for it, and the payments used to be cash only. And that it used to be some of them used to be through invoice you go out legally through the pharmacy or through the wholesaler, and then the wholesaler itself, after it's gone out as a COD or on account, the credit would have been passed through, and then the credit would then show that there's no sale and no balance outstanding, and then the stock adjustment would be done to cancel out the shortage of stock. So when you do our monthly or our bi-monthly or 4 yearly week cycle counts, no stock discrepancies were shown into that cycle count. So it looked as if the stock is fine, but the stock has been coming in and out, or not even reaching the store. And it's similar to what you guys experienced, and it takes a while to pick it up. Your bookkeepers and all those people should have picked it up as well. Your VAT return should have been not paid, and even doing your credit balances on your statements according to your invoices and your proof of deliveries, and also then the GRV where it was received into your own system itself. Some system has picked it up, but I think you can draw it usually is the camaraderie of people working together. There's a fine line of people working together. It's not just one person that can do it on its own. What are people working together, and your staff also probably sees what happened. They probably saw the stock coming in and going out, and they don't speak. And that's what's so alarming for me, that the staff members that see something wrong is going on, and the manager is doing it, they don't make alarm. And how long it's been carrying on? It's been carrying on. You don't know for how long. Exactly. He's fired by the manager firing him because he's involved and he's actually responsible for them, and he can hire and fire them the way he wants to do it.
But this is such an interesting story, because it must be, if it happened to us with our little store, it's happened on a grand scale with you, and I'd like to unpack that in a moment. It's got to be happening all over the country, and anybody who's watching this, who's in the retail game, beware.
Yeah. anyway. And I think I've done about I've enrolled for 4 times for MBA degree, but I think I've done my MBA degree with all these dealings and stealings from me. I've done my own very expensive MBA course. And coincidentally, the pharmacist that did this defrauding had his MBA done. So, I mean, he was a master in working sums out, finding alternative routes of this dispersing of the stuff or the stock or the invoices or the proof of deliveries and all those type of things. So it was a combination of a very clever, well-coordinated and orchestrated thing. And don't forget, from your goods receiving person to your security, to your bookkeeper, to your pharmacist. And then what I found, Alec, is the interesting thing is in a bookkeeping system or in a sales system and in a warehousing system or any you've got a shop, not one person should be allowed to do a debit. In other words, charge someone an account, and the same person must be allowed on the system with these login details to do credit for that same person for account as well. It's got to be two separate entities. And he gave himself the right to be able to, in other words, put it on a fake account, and then also putting a credit back and cancelling it after the goods has been sent out to the legal routes of the security guard and all those things. So it goes out legally because it's an invoice, but the invoice is cancelled afterwards. In your instance, I think the invoice never got onto your system as well. So many a time it happened to me as well. And you would have seen it if you reconcile your statements, you will pick it up.
How big a business is this, Hannes? I've read through the court papers, but if you lose 50 million rand plus, because that's only the one line, it's only the one product that Paul has investigated. But before we bring Paul in, how big a business is it?
I think it's quite a big business. The black market for anything in the world is a big, for medicine especially. I mean, if you take a Viagra tablet or something like that, there's always Viagra's on the black market available. And all those type of things really cause a bit of problems. But that's why I got Paul O Sullivan in, because he's fantastic in his way of digging deeper and getting up to the roots of things. And that's the reason why I got Paul on board, because of his expertise, his way of doing things, and not taking no for an answer, and not the stop street is not a stop street. You carry on because there's a stop street for a reason in the road, because they try and disguise what they've been doing.
Paul, so when you were brought in by Hannes, how do you start investigating something like this? Because it appears to be a criminal syndicate at work within the organization.
Yeah, there's no doubt. We were able to discover that there was a criminal syndicate at work. When we got involved, we had a number of staff working on this project, and one of them is our financial accountant, who's also a forensic auditor. And we started with the paper trail, and we started asking for various documents. And we looked at the amount of sales going through, and we chose one particular product of one particular supplier, because otherwise we could have had a forensic investigation that goes on for 2 or 3 years, and we've actually completed the work in a couple of months. Now, the supplier we chose, we're not going to name names because the supplier wasn't involved in any way, shape or form in the scam, but the supplier we chose a particular product that supplier supplies. And the product in question is a codeine-based cough syrup, 100 milliliter bottles. And unfortunately, in South Africa, there's a problem amongst certain people who see that not as a cough syrup, but see it as a way of getting a fix, because codeine, it's a morphine-based drug, and there are certain controls in place. You can't go into a shop without giving your name and say, give me 100 bottles of codeine, because there's no way they'll supply it. In fact, even if you want to buy one bottle, you're supposed to give your name, or you're on their system already, and they'll recognize you and just, issue it to you on that basis. Now, we found that the syndicate was being led by the general manager. And what started triggering our concern was when we started asking for certain documents, the staff we requested the documents from upped and resigned on the same day. And when they gave in their resignation, they put in a written resignation, and the way in which they resigned was they blamed Hannes for targeting staff, for not being a good boss, and for being aggressive. Meanwhile, and then when one of them resigned, I then got in fact, it was Ashley phoned her. I said, listen, we know you've resigned. We're sorry you've fallen out with Hannes, but we'd like to have a chat to you anyway. And she effectively told us, no, she's not interested. We must get lost. And then it's amazing. A few weeks later, we see her with her face covered so you can't make out who she is, giving an interview on Carte Blanche. And that's quite shocking because she was actually part and parcel of the problem. And so too was the accountant. So we had a situation where the general manager was ordering and buying stock, going into the books of the company, and then selling the stock on the black market. And then with the cash proceeds of the sales on the black market, was paying for the stock as if he is one of the customers. So you end up with a situation where, for example, the warehouse would ship 1,000, we just, use a figure at random, 1,000 bottles of syrup to one of Hannes's pharmacies. And the account for that 1,000 bottles of syrup, instead of being paid internally by that pharmacy, was being paid by this external party who hadn't bought the syrup at all. And then we figured out that, in fact, it was the main suspect, the ringleader. We figured out that it was actually his contacts that were paying for the product. Now, we interviewed the staff that remained, and when we interviewed the staff that remained, and because of the nature of the investigation, they were all interviewed under caution, so they were warned, that if they had done anything wrong, they should now speak about it, and so on and so forth. But they came right on out and said, no, but actually, we just did what we were told. He was a general manager. He was our boss. And we just did what he was told. And he would come to us and say, don't put those invoices through. Leave them. And then he'd come to us and say, put those invoices through. And then a week later, he'd say, actually reverse those invoices. So he had other staff doing, so he didn't have his fingerprints on the documentation. But he made a mistake because some of the stuff he actually did himself. And you have to log in when you work on the system, and we could see it was him that did it. And then, of course, the biggest mistake he made was he used the staff, the delivery drivers of Hannes's company, to deliver the stock that he was stealing. And of course, we interviewed them, and they couldn't remember the addresses, so I had one of my staff take the delivery driver in one of our cars, and we went to the locations where he delivered it, and lo and behold, it was the same storage facility that Carte Blanche visited, and the story Carte Blanche had with a doctor, who a doctor claimed he'd never received any goods at all. We, in fact, got evidence that one of the delivery drivers was sent by the main suspect to pick up a package from that same doctor, and when he got there, the package wasn't ready, and he had to sit there and wait while they counted wads of money, 200 Rand notes, into a large envelope, which was probably in excess of 100,000 Rand. And that money he brought back to the general manager of Hannes's business. Now, when we put all the pieces of the jigsaw together, what we actually find was there was a crime syndicate operating within the company. Oh, I should also tell you, he was issuing invoices. He had another member of staff that was working there, and he gave her a laptop, and he directed her to issue invoices for his side business. And his side business involved selling these products. Now, she was making out the invoices during Hannes's company time, producing the invoices on their printer, giving into it to the main suspect, and the suspect was collecting the cash for the goods that he was selling, which he'd stolen from Hannes's pharmacy. Now, I approached her. She'd left the company. She agreed to give a sworn statement. And then as I was on my way to her to get the sworn statement, she changed her mind. So it's clear that he got out there. The main suspect had got to her. So we've now requested the police to go and pick her up because there's evidence that she was involved in the crime syndicate as well. And then the sad part about it is these people, in order to get ahead of any criminal investigation, because we went in there in June, by June, they'd all panicked when they realized we were coming on the scene. And their backup was to go to Carte Blanche and claim that Hannes had cooked up this scheme where he was selling codeine-based products on the black market. Meanwhile, he knew nothing about it. We uncovered the whole thing. So then all the witnesses that Carte Blanche used to put their documentary together were people that are part of the crime syndicate, which means Carte Blanche have actually conspired with a criminal syndicate to accuse the victim of committing the crime, the very same crime that they'd committed. And if he had committed the crime, how is it that he's the one that's out of pocket to the tune of about 50 million rand, when in fact the crime syndicate have walked away with all that money?
Yo, what a story. Hannes, what about the impact of it on you?
Alec, this person that the main brain out behind it is a pharmacist. And he was the responsible pharmacist, taking charge of each and every responsibility and medicine that was uploaded or sold in that business. So he was the responsible pharmacist, qualified person with an MBA that did these things. So it was well orchestrated, making me look as if I'm a culprit. I have 350 staff members, so it's impossible to watch over 350 staff members. We have our rules. We are a wholesaler. A wholesaler may sell in big quantities. And my rule was, if you sell in big quantities, you must make sure it's registered with the Pharmacy Council organization that you're selling to, and make sure you've got a certificate on hand. And that was done. So I couldn't find anything fault with it. The only thing I found fault with it was that my cash flow was going down and down and down, and these big transactions were apparently going through. And I remember, Alec, that he sold the medicine and took all the profit for himself. Now, I was still sitting with a bill outstanding to the pharmaceutical supplier. So I still had no income out of it. I lost all the sales of it, and now I still had to pay the pharmaceutical company for the goods that I've received already as well. So it was a double loss for me, and that's why the quantities can be 55 to 60, 70 million rand that he's done in this state. Yes, we heard how to sell big quantities, so it wasn't absurd to sell 10,000 of certain products to groups or to pharmacies, because that's not all. We're a pharmaceutical wholesaler as well.
I'm just wondering whether this is a South African equivalent of the OxyContin saga in the United States.
I don't know. It's codeine-based, and it's not a morphine-based. It's more of a codeine-based, and the codeine-based is a mood lifter, and it's a euphoric drug, so they use it apparently for that. I've never used it myself, even if I've had a cough. But it's a product that's highly in demand, seems to me. And you must remember that Paul Sullivan and his group have only done one company, and that came to this big amount of 22 to 30 million already. And they're still due to another 3 companies' products. They're still up for coming. But we had to make a court case because it's getting warm around me, because I'm being made out as the guilty person. So Paul rushed down to get this first final report of the one company signed and sealed and basketed and all the loose ends tied in, so that at least we can go make a case. And now we've got a top forensic expert doing the report on the crimes, and it carries water, and Paul's investigations are thorough. It's clean cut. There's no misunderstandings incurred, and also the inspector that does the case, and also the prosecuting officer said to us, they won't go do the rest until we have got a full forensic report. And that's why I went for Paul Sullivan, because I think Paul is the best to do something like that, and then to make sure I've got the best person doing it, and not doing it myself and trying to make a case out of it, whereas Paul's case is much more solid.
Paul, from your side, why would the chief suspect and suspects and the criminal guys, why would they go to Carte Blanche? What was their hope? Because surely at some point in time, the scheme had to be exposed.
Well, I think they realized that they would be exposed. I mean, when I rocked up there, I don't rock up there with a team of people and they all start clapping hands. I use the expression with Ashley. I said, look, the rats are jumping off the ship. Now, that's what happened there. They realized that the trouble was coming. Now, we do forensic investigations at various companies and corporations. And sometimes when we arrive there on our first day to start the work, we see the windows, the curtains or the blinds on the windows moving as we're getting out of our car in the car park. And a murmur goes around that head office building. And by lunchtime, it's, the general chat at the cold water station where they get their water is, oh crap, there's something going on. And normally what happens is people go, they dive for cover. In fact, quite often, if it's a corporate investigation we're doing, on our first day at work, we go around and we photograph the high cost vehicles in the staff car park, because quite often these people show their wealth. They don't steal all that money and come to work in a beat up old banger. So that's how we start our work. Now, in the case of Hannes, we suddenly found that people that we wanted to speak to resigned and left. And documents were missing, by the way. They didn't just resign and left. The documents, the original documents, the GRVs with the signatures on, were gone. So we had to reconstitute from what the supplier could reissue and from what records were on the system at Hannes's company. Now, that tells you right away that it's an inside job that's going on. And there's no doubt in our mind that the picture they painted, they had to paint, and they had to do it publicly to try and make Hannes like the bad guy. Now, who else could they go to? Carte Blanche are so gullible. They do these investigations all the time. I mean, we're talking about the same organization that on the 8th of May, 2016, went on air and accused me of kidnapping somebody. So, it's, and that the person that I'm alleged to have kidnapped was the mistress of the person that was producing that insert. Now, so, in fact, we caught her stealing at her employer's work, and she wasn't kidnapped at all. And they waited 3 years, the kidnapped victim, and they opened a fake criminal docket against me, and the thing was thrown out of court as being rubbish. And Carte Blanche fell for it, hook, line, and sinker. And when they realized that they'd fallen for it, hook, line, and sinker, the first thing they did was to take down that show. There's no existence of that insert anywhere on their website. But they're stupid, because I've got a copy of it, and every now and then I play it and watch how gullible Carte Blanche are and how it's all about sensation. Now, what's of interest is that Hannes's lawyer, we had a meeting, and Hannes's lawyer wrote to Carte Blanche and asked them for details of how they make their money. And they flatly refused to respond. Well, we know how they make their money. They have these independent producers that work for Carte Blanche, and each one of them has their own little CC or PTY setup, and they invoice Carte Blanche if they make a show. And it's normally anything from 10 to 12. In this case, I think it was 20 minutes of insert, which is one of the longest productions they've ever done. Now, when they get these inserts, they put it on Carte Blanche. You normally get 3 or 4 or 5 stories in that 1 hour. But if you sit and watch for that 1 hour on Carte Blanche on DSTV channel 101, there's actually 18 minutes of advertising. Now, if you look for quotations to advertise on DSTV channel 101, the most expensive time period to advertise on channel 101 is the 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. slot on a Sunday night, because Carte Blanche have to get more viewers. So what they do is they send out little teasers a week before, and they put on social media little snippets, and then they take down the snippets after they've got thousands of responses. So what they did a week or 2 weeks before they ran this program, they put out on social media how Springbok, 1995 Springbok player, and they deliberately do it during the World Cup. So they know the Rugby World Cup is on. This is the flavor of the month. Let's get something out there. And they put out a sensational thing where they lie through their teeth. They are so dishonest, it's shocking. They lie through their teeth. They accuse him of being a criminal on the air. Then when they're tackled by his lawyer on that, they take that social media grab down. And then 2 weeks later, they run this story where they give a platform to the crime syndicate that had taken Hannes for the best part of 50 million rand.
Hey, Paul. Okay, so you've had your view on all of this, and clearly we're not we're not taking a position on whether Carte Blanche is good or bad. But in this case, I'm pretty sure, knowing the executive producer, they will apologize. There's no question in my mind, and surely that's the route to go. Hannes, from your side though, as we wrap up now, because we all got to get ready for the World Cup final. You don't always wear your Springbok jersey when you're on interviews.
I wear it. It's Springbok Thursday today in Pretoria. That's why I'm wearing it today. We wear all of my staff wears a Springbok jersey today.
Mm-hmm. But from your perspective, what Paul's now outlined, when you get onto a mass media program like this, did people stand by you? Did you get to know your friends and your not such friends?
Very well. People that have known me. I've never done business. I've never corrupted anybody in my life, and it's difficult to keep a straight face and to stay calm. I mean, with a Carte Blanche cameraman in your face, shoving a microphone in your face, the reporter later said, "But I think this guy's deaf. He doesn't want to speak to me. I think he can't hear because he would look at to his side." But it's just. I'm so grateful for Paul and O Sullivan coming in and helping me in this, because I think they tried to close me down before I could get to them, before the report could come out. And they would try to knock me down. And if I was knocked down, I mean, any business with a 50, 60 million rand loss would have not been existed. I'm the sole owner. I'm the only director of all the companies. And so I've got to take the brunt myself. And then I'm living through it. But I mean, any other person, and that's why I went for Paul, is for the best, go for the best, and then you get the best results. And that actually helped, because we can now go to SOPRA, we can go to the Pharmacy Council, the Medical Control Council, we can show to them exactly what happened, and that I was not the one orchestrating it and getting the funding for it. And that'll actually help me, because I've got a reputable person like Paul O Sullivan and Associates helping me in getting the real facts out there.
Well, it takes a lifetime to build a business like yours. It takes an instant to have it, not in your case being destroyed, but certainly the reputation to be tarnished in the way that it has. I
remember any publicity is good publicity. We'll turn it around. I think people will start realizing really what happened, and we'll turn it around. And with the assistance of Paul and the publicity we're getting through it, I'm sure that we'll get through this.
For sure. Before you go, it's just before the World Cup final. I guess a lot of people are going to be watching this after the World Cup final. Are you going to put your neck on the line there?
I'll put another million on the Springboks break. You know, as I said earlier, they can send the cup so long to South Africa, because it's meant to be here. We'll make the space for it in the trophy cabinet here in South Africa.
In the racing industry where I come from, they say from your lips to God's ears. Sorry, Paul, last word.
Yeah, I'm currently in Manchester on business, which is, I'm pleased to say I've managed to get a ticket. So I'm going to fly from London to Paris on Saturday, and hopefully, I'm going to, well, in fact, I'm going to start off in Paris at O Sullivan's pub in the middle of Paris.
Force yourself.
One of the most famous Irish pubs in Paris. And after I've finished up there, I'm probably going to slip up to the stadium where I got a ticket, and hopefully we'll see them get the final kick over the bar in a minute or 2 minutes before the end of the game. It's going to be, if it's anything like the English game or the last time New Zealand and South Africa played, I think they won it 30 seconds before the end of the game. So I think the same thing can happen, yeah.
Close game.
Or even like the game that Hannes was involved in 1995 in extra time. We'll take it any way we can. And
we're just bringing it up.
Wonderful talking with you, Hannes Strydom, who's given us his insights on the ordeal that he's been through, and it happens often in business. Just open your eyes. And Paul O'Sullivan, forensic investigator from Forensics for Justice. I'm Alec Hogg from biznews.com.